Welcome everyone to Real Estate with Gwen Price, and we're going to be talking about mortgages and what's been happening in the mortgage market. And I'm with Trina Tallon, a mortgage agent with Neighborhood Dominion Lending. Hi, Trina, how are you?
Hi, Gwen.
Yeah, and we did the market update the other day, and unfortunately things got all messed up and we couldn't get you in on that conversation with Lana Wache, but just a brief little capsulation of what's happened with the market. The average sale price has pretty been flat for the last 3 months, but that doesn't mean that prices are dropping and all that kind of thing, because we have a shortage of listings, and it's about 8% in comparison to last April. And you know, the average sale price from last April to this April is still about 30% increase. So we're hovering around the 480 to 500, depending which set of stats you look at, for the last 3 months. So as you know, we all know things are changing in the mortgage industry, and some of those rates have gone up now, and people, they're looking at what's happening in Toronto, and yeah, maybe there are price reductions there, but we're not Toronto. We're not, that isn't all of a sudden, you know, the average sale price isn't going to go back to 350 from 500. So what's happening with mortgage rates and what's happening in your world?
Well, lots, right? And I'm gonna touch on like your market update just a little bit, because that is part and parcel for what goes on in the mortgage industry too, right? Mm-hmm. So we have close to 2 million new to Canada folks currently waiting for their permanent residency status.
2 million
already wow. In Canada. That is the backlog that the government has had because of COVID, mostly. Yeah. And they're anticipating another 350 to 420,000 per year.
Wow.
And Canada gets the best immigrants out of anyone. Little bias being Canadian, but it's an actual fact. We get the most educated.
Yeah.
They come with money, mm-hmm. and they're used to home ownership. That's what they want. Yeah. So our listing shortage and the prices of homes are not really going to get much better, in my opinion. Well, first of all, suburbs just come into line as to where they should be. Yeah. But we truly have a housing crisis. We have a shortage of housing, and we have no idea where we're going to put all these people to start with. And we need the people mm-hmm. to come into our country, these folks, in order to keep our economy going, because Canadians are not having enough kids.
Well, and there's a shortage of there's jobs and not enough people to fill them, and we keep talking about the wave of baby boomers retiring. A lot of them already have, and then there's kind of this follow-up wave that, you know, are wanting to retire for sure. And we need people, skilled people, to take those jobs.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads into employment, because as soon as employment gets to 4% or less, the government considers us like a fully employed country. Mm. And we are at that point where our unemployment rate is extremely low, which, you know, is fantastic. It's good to have people working.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the rates a little bit. We got really spoiled in the last 2 years with interest rates.
Yeah.
Really spoiled. And I really should put this up on my social media one of these days. By the way, if anyone's looking to do my social media posting for me, call me.
I'd offer, but it's already almost a full-time job for me.
Exactly. I miss my social media individual. Yeah. She went off and took on new projects and things like that. She's not doing this anymore, and so that's to happen. But we got spoiled by rates, like insanely low rates in 2020 and 2021. We all knew they were not sustainable as far as fixed rates are concerned. I go back to when I purchased my home in 2018, the fall of 2018, and my 5-year fixed rate, which I'm not in anymore. I switched myself to one with a variable, was 3.39. And that was with me getting my discount from one of my lenders because I'm a broker.
Yeah.
So these rates had to come back up again. Now, there are two different things that we hear about out there. There's the variable rates, which are affected by prime, and there's the fixed rates, which are affected by what's going on, like in our worldwide economy type of thing. Banks and other mortgage lenders borrow money from investors to lend out for mortgages. And that money, the cost of that money is directly related to what's going on in the bond market for fixed rates. And I know when I usually start talking, people's eyes glaze over when I talk about rates.
Yeah, well, see, that's why I send people to mortgage brokers such as you, because, yeah, I get that glazed look too.
Yes.
It's so much.
And I try and keep it as simple as possible.
Well, and it's just because it is not way back in the day, 30 years ago, banking is different than today. And, you know, there is, of course, still things that are the same, but it's so much for me to keep up to date on. So you can imagine what the public is wondering, right?
Right. And real estate agents, I don't put my fingers into what's going on with the real estate and telling you when to write offers and all that kind of stuff. So just leave this stuff to the people that only do mortgages.
Yes.
And in particular, I'm going to say it, people who do not work for a major bank, because the banks have a much different idea than what we're taught in the broker industry. So back to the fun stuff.
Yeah.
The Bank of Canada's prime rate, the variable is based on, has been going up. And the reason why they discounted it so deeply during 2020, during our pandemic, was it to be able to stimulate the economy because unemployment was up. They were worried, the exact opposite happened to what we all thought was going to happen in April of 2020. We went from thinking that our industry was going to completely shut down, to it actually booming insanely. Yes. So now we're starting to see the prime rate come up, and even if it still goes up by 1% more over the next year and a half, or whatever, it's still far below what we're looking at with the fixed rates right now. So we were talking off camera earlier where I have a client that I've had numerous clients like this where they've endured 2 increases by the Bank of Canada so far. And his variable rate is only 2.1%. And his fixed rate at the time would have been over 3%. So he's winning in a huge way. The second thing is lots of conversations with clients calling saying, we want to lock in. And my first response is, no, you don't. And here's why. 70% of Canadians break their mortgage within a 5-year term, period. End of discussion. Marital breakdown, selling to buy something bigger, selling to downsize, refinancing to do repairs, refinancing to pay off debt. We're at the highest amount of unsecured debt that we've ever had in Canada. So refinances are major right now.
Yeah.
Refinancing to purchase revenue properties. Everyone's on the revenue property wagon right now because the government's talking about increasing down payment to a minimum of 30% in the next year for investment properties.
Wow.
It's all about risk, right? Like,
yes. Yeah.
The increase with the upswing in market value, that's an upswing in risk. That's a lot of money out there with, investment properties that they are a huge risk for banks and lenders. And they're a lot more difficult to purchase than they are if you're purchasing your primary residence. There's a lot more going on. So right now, for a 5-year fixed rate, for someone with less than 20% down, we're around the 4% mark, which is not crazy.
No.
For 20% down to 25 or 30% down, the rate's a little bit higher than that. And for people who are refinancing, let's just say refinancing, the fixed rate's about 4.49 to 4.59, 4.69. Refinances are always higher than purchases. And then rentals, you know, they're up around there too, maybe even closer to the 5% mark. So I will not put any of my clients in a fixed rate right now, because the variable rate, Gwen, is like I have to do my math really quick, 2.1.
2.1.
It's half.
Yeah, yeah.
And even if it goes up by 1%, you're at 3.1, which is still a percent lower. And that percent, like, let's say you're looking at a $300,000 mortgage amount, that 1% is like a total interest savings over 5 years of $46,000.
That's pretty significant, right?
Yes.
That's nothing to say, oh, geez, no.
Exactly. And the old saying, what goes up must come down. Rates are going up because we're in Canada, we're in this lovely bubble. We have a lovely country. Okay, gas prices are going up and groceries are going up. I get it. It's not fun. But we don't live in other countries where a lot of really negative things are happening right now. Yeah, the wars, and it's not just Ukraine, there's wars happening all over the place. Yeah. There's huge division of like neighbors, like what we're looking at in the United States kind of thing. And so we're very fortunate, but that is truly going to affect what happens with our mortgage rates. Absolutely. And inflation's up, and that's a worldwide thing. That's not just our country and the government can fix it. So the other thing that happens, and this is my little bit conspiracy theory thing, but this is historical. Whenever we see prime start to go up, the fixed rates tend to go up at the same time, because the mentality, and the banks know this, are that people are going to go, oh my God, my rate just went up by 0.5%. I have to lock in. Yeah. And banks know this. So now people are looking at going from like a 2% interest rate with their variable that's only going to cost them 3 months interest if they have to break the mortgage during the term. Yes. Versus the fixed rate being over 2% more. And then you're into a much higher penalty. You're rolling the dice that you could pay up to 5% of what you owe on your mortgage in a penalty if you have to break it. Yeah, it is significant. And I've had clients that have had huge penalties that they didn't realize because they were only a short period into their term. And you could be a year out, and it all is depending on where the rates are at the time. What are the posted rates at the time? What was the discount off the rate that you got when you signed up for your mortgage? I have a client right now, they were with a bank and they owe about $300,000 on their mortgage. They have 2 years left and they have a $15,000 penalty, and they're splitting up. So there's already stress, and then all of a sudden they've got this other bill that has to be paid off. Yeah, that's right. And the banks love fixed rate because they know that people break their mortgages, 68 to 70% of Canadians, and they love that penalty money. And I've had people say, everybody thinks, oh, I'm waiting for the market to crash. And, oh, people are going to lose their houses because rates have gone up, and it's all very alarmist and everything. But people for how many years now have had to do the stress test to qualify for a mortgage? So, what's really interesting is that stress test became a big thing in 2018, but we've always had a stress test. What happened in 2018 is that the government said everyone needs to go with a stress test now. So one of the reasons why the 5-year fixed was so popular was that up until 2018, if your rate was 3% on your contract for your mortgage, that's what they used to qualify you at for what you could afford. But if you took a 5-year variable or a 3-year fixed or a 10-year fixed, they qualified you at a higher benchmark rate, which back then I think was 4.9 or something like that. Yeah. So that's why that 5-year fixed was so popular as well. It's because people were like, they were giving an extra percentage or 2% that they didn't have to worry about for that qualifying rate. Now, what's interesting is that almost the opposite has happened, because the rule is we have to qualify them at the benchmark rate, which right now is 5.25, or their contract rate plus 2. So
Okay.
very, very important. With a 5-year fixed rate, let's say it's at 4% right now, we have to qualify them at 6% if they want a fixed rate.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So all these pre-approvals that have been done out there all over the place may not be good anymore.
Well, and I think, yes, we government's trying to protect us from ourselves overextending and all of that. And I think, I mean, people have been refinancing, but people have been running up all the other debts too, the credit card debts, the line of credits, all of those things too, which probably are even more onerous than their mortgage, right? Because some of those credit card debts are pretty horrible and scary.
Well, your average is about 19% interest.
Yeah.
And it's compounded.
Yeah.
So
it's just,
you pay interest on interest on interest on interest.
Yeah, that is probably having a bigger effect on people right now than the mortgage rate, because your mortgage is, it's way below 10%, right? It's below 6, it's whatever. We've had cheap money for so long, people got used to just getting it, taking it, borrowing it,
Yes, absolutely. So maybe on one of, you just made me think of something, on one of our next chats, we should talk about people purchasing investment properties and using their own personal money for down payment versus taking equity out of their existing property for down payment.
Yeah. Well, that's, for sure. Because I think a lot of people, there's all these different investment groups going on too, people buying properties, and some people are flipping and doing all kinds of creative things. And that's okay, as long as everything's done exactly the way the bank, every piece of paper is documented, where's that down payment and all of those things coming from. So there was lots of stuff over the years that I've seen that was pretty shady. And nowadays everything has to be documented, right? You can't try to slide something past the banks, and where's that money coming from? And yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, and also because of money laundering and all of that sort of thing, everything has to be much more, what's the expression, T's crossed, I's dotted, and all those things. So there's lots of stuff going on out there. Some I try to stay away from some crazy stuff like that, but there's opportunities for people in every market, right? Yes, it is a seller's market right now, and there's lots of multiple offers still going on, but and I know, compared to the rest of the world, people look at Canada as stable. They look at, if they look at Sudbury, Ontario, we're pretty stable right now. We're not the same city we were 30 some years ago. And there's a lot going on in mining right now. So.
Yes, and lots of new doctors.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just been this year, the number of doctors that have been reaching out to me that either they've just graduated from our medical school or they've just completed their residency and they're just coming back to Sudbury. Yeah. So it's interesting getting mortgages for those folks, because everything's based on projected income.
Yeah. Okay.
And not a lot of places do projected income. So I've been having fun with that.
Yeah. Well, and it's like being, self-employed is different when you've got an employer that's giving you, the same pay every 2 weeks and everything's stable. When you're self-employed, of course, it's very much, how much you put into it, and the banks look at us differently.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, it's just because there's so much talk out on the street right now, like I say, everybody keeps saying, oh, the market's crashing, it's this, it's that. And there's so much misinformation, because oftentimes they're reading headlines from places like Toronto, from the States, and all of those things. Sudbury's a different creature of its own, I guess.
Absolutely. Yes, there's a lot of headlines about it. And the interesting thing about the media is that they sell their media based on the shock factor, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where we're at now with
Yeah.
our news outlets. So it gets people, it's caused a culture of people being very nervous about things and not necessarily fully educated about especially financial matters, I would say, just because that's the industry I'm in. I see quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
And this isn't your mom and dad's world of mortgages anymore.
No. And still, I really believe the COVID factor is there, and I believe the whole war in Ukraine, people are wanting stability in their life, and they want a sanctuary. They want to, and that's why I always keep saying about a house you can feel and touch. Bitcoins, not so much, right? So people want that. They want security. They want to feel okay. They've got this soft place to land at the end of the day, and it's mine, and I can go out in my yard and I can do this, and I have the freedom. So I think when there's a lot of insecurity in the world, people look for security, right? And they want to have, to understand what do I have going forward in this life for myself and my family. So
for sure, I agree.
Yeah, so real estate's and it's the most valuable asset most people will buy or sell, and they need professionals to help them with that. And so at the end of the day, they have something an asset that's building value every year, and have some security in their life.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Trina. Yeah, and
Thank
we'll
you,
be talking again in another month, and see how things have gone in our market. But it's beautiful weather out there, and that always makes me in a good mood and happy and optimistic. So
me too. I'll be going home and raking lawns and things like that.
Yeah, I know. I dropped in at one of the garden centers, and thank goodness I looked at my watch and realized I had to get out of there, because it's like danger, don't buy more. So anyway, well, you take care, and thanks a lot,
You too,
Trina.
Gwen. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.